Good evening, everyone. Welcome back to the second episode of tonight's recordings of the Wilderness Fitness Podcast. I'm your host tonight, Dr. Rob Minturn, owner and founder of the Wilderness Fitness Institute, physical therapist, strength and conditioning specialist. Coming at you, it's 8:20 on a Saturday evening, and I can't think of anything else I'd rather do. Actually, there are a few other things I'd rather do, but doing a podcast is actually pretty fun. I enjoy doing this long form content. I hate the Instagram, social media stuff, but it seems to be getting easier. So, uh, I just got done doing the adapting your way off the mountain. So, geared towards the older adult, but definitely talk about pelvic in there, definitely talk about mountain fitness, just in general, even for younger folks. So, if you haven't listened to that one, I think that one would be a very good one for a little perspective shift for the younger generations as well. Um, Anyway, this episode is going to be about crafting a running routine or crafting a cardio routine. If you're not a runner, you can craft a cardio routine, but this is definitely geared towards the trail runner. So we're going to we're going to be talking about progressions of elevation gain and distance for the trail runner. This can also be applicable to backpackers and hikers as well. Um, because y'all are going to be doing distance and elevation game. So, super specific for trail runners, hikers, and backpackers. With your cardio routines, you need to have a systematic progression. I guess you don't need to, but it's going to definitely be helpful in reducing risk of injury. I shouldn't say risk of injury, in reducing injury rates and actually enhancing your performance. Because you need to have a systematic progression with increasing the volume, so your distance ran and or hiked and your actual vertical gain in preparation for your mountain adventure, whether it's a trail race or whether that's a hunt, backpacking trip. There needs to be a progression with that. You can certainly do it without, but it always increases your chance of having an injury. Um, and it reduces it's just not going to be a systematic progression to where you can systematically see the progress. And you can go back and look to see where you started to have issues, right? If you're just winging it, it's going to be very hard to see where you started having issues because there was no consistency there. Having a strategy helps you better prepare for the mountain. And all right, let's just dive on in. So, general rule of thumb was a 10% rule, and it's something that I talk about in the program as well when folks enroll. But as of late, there has been a little bit more research going into, well, is a 10% rule truly applicable? If you think of a triathlete, if they increase their overall mileage by 10%, that's going to be a 10% increase in running, a 10% increase in cycling, and a 10% increase in swimming. And that is going to be a nightmare on their body, right? So obviously, I'm not specializing in triathletes. So, but that is just one example, right? So if you're backpacking or running, trail running, whatever you're doing, and you increase both your vertical gain and your distance by 10% each, because maybe you go on a trail a little bit further, there's more elevation gain. It's going to be more than just a 10% overall increase in stress on your body. So, um, general rule of thumb is that you want to keep it to about a 15% regression between the two, right? You can choose to, you can choose to progress both. If you do that, you can do a 10% and a 5% or two 7.5%. But general idea is you want to keep the total progression of your elevation gain and your distance at 15%. A few factors are going to go into this or why this number was picked. But your recovery ability, your sleep and nutrition. If your sleep is on point, your nutrition is on point, you're likely going to be able to progress at that 15% rate. If your sleep is lackluster, right? You're a dad, your mom, your grandparent that watches the kids a lot, whoever you are, if your sleep is not consistent, you got pets. If you're not consistently getting 7.5 hours of sleep of uninterrupted sleep, where you wake up and like you're up for 5 minutes or so, not the where you wake up and fall right back asleep. But if you are doing that, you're disrupting your sleep cycles, so you're not getting good quality sleep. Okay. So you're getting less sleep. You're not getting the 7.5, and or you're not getting the good quality sleep. That's going to impact your ability to recover, because sleeping is really the only time that our body does recover. So, and then your nutrition. If your nutrition's not on point with your carbohydrate intake while you're training and outside of your training times and your protein intake to allow adequate recovery, that is going to likely lead to it, or it's likely going to necessitate you reducing the progression from that 15% overall to maybe a 10% overall, and the increase between the volume of your running or the volume of your hiking and the vertical gain. Okay. Um, Prior training age is also going to dictate how quickly you can progress. So both strength and cardio. Strength training benefits your cardio both with heart adaptations themselves or itself and with the musculoskeletal system. So your tendons, your bones, your ligaments, your muscles. Those all improve resistance training is going to improve your cardio capacity in that regard as well. So that's going to dictate how quickly you can progress if you've been doing that or not. And then your age. Simply 16-year-olds can recover a heck of a lot easier and a heck of a lot quicker than a 70-year-old. Okay. So age is gonna have a little factor in there, but it should not be the end all be all, right? If you're getting adequate sleep, your nutrition's on point, and you're lifting weights, and your cardio progressions are appropriate, both with elevation gain and volume, you can likely be closer to that 15%. Okay. Um, let's see. Weekly vertical gain versus single session vertical gain. So you want to aim to accumulate the total vertical you expect to gain on your hunt or adventure over the course of a week during your peak training weeks. So on a hunt, maybe you take your biggest vertical gain day. That might be your pack in, your pack out days. And then you stretch that over your training over the week, right? Or if it's going to be a very strenuous maybe a 2 day pack in, you might be gaining a couple thousand feet over 2 days. Then you stretch that out, that couple, 2, 3, 4,000 feet elevation gain over your training week. Okay. So if you have like I said, if you have a very strenuous pack in or pack out, maybe you take those 2 days and you stretch it out over a week versus just one singular day. Um, the ways to accumulate your vert, or sorry, going back to that, you don't want to accumulate in one single session. So what that like when someone trains for a marathon, they're likely not running a marathon to actually train for the marathon, even during their peak weeks. It's not something that they typically do, right? The overall training volume is going to accumulate up to a marathon, but in one single session, they're not doing that. They're saving that for race day. So same thing to consider here for your backpack hunts or for your backpacking adventures if you're not a hunter. Um, is aim to accumulate that total vertical gain and that total distance over the course of your training peak week instead of one single session. Okay. Ways to accumulate vertical gain is going to be hill repeats. You can do that outside. If you live near a mountain, you can certainly do it up and down the mountain. If you live in the Midwest, depends on where you're at, you can certainly do it up and down the hills or the bluffs. If you live somewhere where there's no hills, there's no bluffs, you can certainly do it in a staircase, like in a hospital staircase over lunch, or you go there outside of your working hours if they're cool with that. It's bleachers at stadiums, bleachers at high school stadiums. Most high schools, at least in the Midwest, it seems like people are cool with you going on and exercising at the high schools. So one thing to consider there is that you could go there and do some hill repeats up and down the bleachers. There's ways to gain vertical there's ways to gain vert. You just might have to be creative with that. On the last podcast, I talked about creativity. Again, be creative with your workouts, not with your daily life. Um, Another way to accumulate vert is hilly roads. You purposely choose on a trail run or a hike, you choose a hilly road versus a flat road. It sucks, right? But the up and down is going to be very beneficial for your training. Another way to accumulate vert some gym-based vertical gain things that you can use are step ups. So you can measure the step, and this is actually something that I have folks do with I call it the Wilderness Fitness Combine. So it's if you guys are familiar with the NFL Combine, it's kind of like that, but it's obviously different because we're not training for NFL. We're training for the mountains. So it's different movements and different things. But in the Wilderness Fitness Combine, if folks don't have a mountain to go hike or a hill to go hike that they can measure, they do step ups. So you can measure the height of the stair, and then you just step up and down enough to accumulate the vertical gain that you want to accumulate, right? It can be redundant. You better put on a good movie or put on a good podcast. If you're listening to this, put one of these episodes on. I think it's a pretty decent podcast. I'm not biased at all. But you can also do a stair climber. That's another way to accumulate vertical gain. One thing in the stair climber, see it all the time, people holding on. Okay. So when you hold on, it seems minor, but it's a super big deal. And I'm going to talk about this with the treadmill too, because the treadmill is the other gym-based way that you can gain vert in the gym. So a low incline, long duration jog, low incline, long duration hike, whatever, or walk, whatever you want to do. Okay. So with the stair climber and with the treadmill, let's go stair climber first. As soon as you put one finger on the railing, it is a immediate life is a lot easier. As soon as it's one finger, because what that does is it increases your base of support. And when you increase your base of support, your hips, your ankles, you're no longer having to use those as the main drivers for your balance. And that is a huge thing when you're going up and down things is balance, right? So if you're someone that's always holding on, you're doing it at like level 8 because you can hold on and like you're leaning forward on the stair and you're huffing and puffing, you can see your sweat beating off you. Stand upright, take your hands off the damn stair railings and see what level you're going to be at. I'm just amazed at how fast people can walk, but then I see that they're holding on. It's like, okay, you're holding on. Like it's a very different ball game. You're going to feel it in your hips a ton more if you've been holding on and now you stop holding on. Now, if balance is an issue, go from two hands holding on to one hand, and then from one hand to no hands. Okay. I wouldn't say go from one hand to one finger, like that's just a waste of time. But go from one hand to two, or from two hands to one hand, from one hand to no hands. Progress yourself out of that two-handed deal because it is going to be a stark difference, right? So you want to be safe, you want to be effective. So if balance is an issue, definitely get away from, or don't take away your bigger base of support by not holding on at all because you listen to this podcast. Okay. But you're going to see a huge change with a Stairmaster, with a stair climber, with that. With the treadmill, the whole point of the incline on the treadmill is to have you lean forward at your hips. That gets more glute engagement, gets more hamstring engagement, gets more calf engagement, especially glutes and hamstrings, though. Okay. If you're someone that's dealing with a knee issue, jack that treadmill up to at least a 5% grade. That's going to offload the knee a little bit. It should allow you to walk a little bit better, or I shouldn't say better. It should allow you to get more volume with less pain, with fewer symptoms. Okay. I shouldn't say pain, I should say symptoms. Discomfort is fine, pain is not. Reproduction of your symptoms is not. Okay. So if with the treadmill, you jack it up and you're holding on and you're able to walk upright, like I'll see that all the time. They're holding on, they're walking at 3.5 miles an hour, and they are leaned back in the treadmill, like they're still perpendicular with the treadmill because now they're holding on and they're able to lean back. That's not the point of the incline. You are defeating the purpose of the incline. You are no longer walking at an incline because your body's leaned back and now your entire body's still perpendicular with the angle of the treadmill. The purpose of you leaning or jacking up the incline is to hinge forward at the hips. That gets the glute engagement, the hamstring engagement. As soon as you put one hand on, it's the same thing as a Stairmaster. It takes away that balance, right? It takes away that balance demand. It takes away that hip angle, which is where the benefits lie. Now, if you're someone with a balance issue, slow down the treadmill, maybe decrease the angle a little bit, but slow down the treadmill, walk with one hand on, or walk with one hand as an aid on the railing. Okay, do that for a couple sessions and then walk with no hand. Maybe you have to go back to one hand for half that session. You try it with no hands. You get super wiped. So in order to get the volume that you need, the time that you need on the treadmill, you put one hand back on. Okay. If you're dealing with a bum knee, a bum hip, bum low back, bum ankle, whatever you're doing, anything from basically pelvis down, if it's on one side, hold on with the opposite hand. Um, Hollywood does it all wrong. where they have the cane in the same hand as the impaired limb, you want to have it in the opposite, right? You can tinker back and forth too. You can see what it feels like when you hold on with the same side and when you hold on with the opposite side. But you're going to get more assistance from your hand with the hand on the opposite side of the affected limb. Okay. But again, the point of the stair climber and the treadmill is to have you hinge forward at the hip. If you have to slow down because balance is an issue, or if fatigue is an issue because now you're actually working your hips and your glutes more, that's totally fine. That's the whole freaking point. Okay. So, jack up the incline, let yourself hinge forward at the hips and go from there. Okay. As far as resources go, so there is a treadmill vertical distance calculator. I'm going to put that in the show notes. There's a link to that. I have no financial gain if you use that or not. I don't care. I'm putting it down there as a resource for you to guys to check out to see how many feet you gain based off of the speed and the incline that you're walking. Again, don't freaking hold on. Even if you are using trekking poles, like it's good to work the hips. That's the whole point of the gym is to work your hips and work everything to the point where they have a higher capacity. So that way, when you do go out to the field, if you're using trekking poles, things are way easier because you're using trekking poles and your hips are more fit. Um, Clinical bottom line. You don't need to be fancy with your programming to get in shape. In fact, fancy off or complexity kills compliance. Simplicity scales. Okay. You need simple, you need progressive overload to get those billy goat legs. The fancier, more complicated the program, the more brain effort and decision making there is, which tends to lead to people or tends to allow people to fall off because the more decisions we have to make in a day, the more we decide to not make those decisions, right? Keep it stupid simple. You'll see results. If you guys need help with your programming, or if you guys want assistance with your programming, that's what I do. I teach you how to do it. I don't tell you what to do. I teach you how to do it, so that way you can do it yourself. Um, all right. I've got nothing else for you guys. So I hope you guys have a great rest of your Saturday evening if I launch it tonight, or the great rest of your Sunday. Have a fabulous weekend. Enjoy this beautiful weather. Enjoy these last few weekends before we really hit it hard with hunting seasons here. I've got some buddies up caribou hunting, or not buddies, but people that I've met caribou hunting. They went 2 for 3. So it's getting me jacked up to go on the haul road because that's where they were at. Anyway, hope you guys have an awesome rest of your day whenever you're listening to this, and we will catch you next week. Peace.